Good morning. Wake up. Wake up, everyone out there in social media land. Wake up, wake up. Happy Tuesday. So I hope everyone had a great Monday, a good start to your week as we move right along through the end of October. October 2020. It's actually approaching 2020, the end of 2020. I can't believe it. I won't miss this year. Good morning. Good morning out there. Just waiting for a few of you to join. We're going to talk about the #1 killer in the United States today. Yes, we are. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Got anyone out there on Instagram? Instagram's a little slow this morning. There we go. We're getting there. Thank you. I made the announcement yesterday that my supplement store had free shipping and that a lot of you were due to reorder, and you did. So thank you. Much appreciated. Just moving those along, getting those orders out. So any of you that are due to reorder, I do have free shipping right now at Total Health Apothecary. So get ordering. And if you subscribe and save on the few products we offer that on, you save 15%. So could auto reorder. Good morning, everyone. All right, we've got everyone out there. So let's dive in. We're going to talk about a topic that's very near and dear to my heart today. As my father died of a stroke, he had a heart attack, he had high blood pressure. And, high blood pressure actually affects, I think, more people than any other condition. So we're going to talk a little bit about some stats. We're going to talk about high blood pressure. We're going to talk about how high blood pressure can occur. Maybe some things that surprise you, okay? I'm going to try to surprise you today. That's my goal. Here's the one thing about it that I want to mention is that most of the time when people present them, for an office visit in front of me, I can tell what's wrong with them, right? Maybe they're sick. Maybe, they have a headache. Maybe they're tired. Maybe they have a skin rash. But the one thing I can't tell is that they have high blood pressure. So there's a reason why it's called the silent killer, because half the time we don't even know that we have it, okay? So most of the time with high blood pressure, unless it gets ridiculously high, you have no symptoms, okay? But beneath the surface, it's starting to cause a lot of problems that down the line will lead to more and more health conditions. And this is why silent killer is a perfect name for it. That's exactly what it does. I'm sorry to hear that, Richard. Obviously very close to my heart, okay? So as blood pressure stays high for long periods of time, it can lead to things like kidney disease, further heart disease, stroke, right? So I like to try to get a hold of this early, and there's actually quite a lot of things you can do lifestyle-wise, nutrition-wise, that can help control your blood pressure as well, either eliminating the need for medications or reducing your need for medications and slowing the process down. And that's what we're trying to do. There was a goal, I think it was by the CDC, that they wanted to reduce hypertension by 25% by 2025. That goal started, I think, in 2010. I don't think we're doing really well, folks. Unfortunately, let me give you some stats here. This is unbelievable. First of all, 1 in every 3 Americans has high blood pressure. Okay? 1 in every 3. The estimates are anywhere from 68 million to 150 million Americans, okay? Half of our adult population in America is diagnosed with high blood pressure. More scary, 20% of the people with high blood pressure don't even know that they have high blood pressure. 20%. Okay, so we sit here, we talk about risks. We talk about what are the risks of being infected? What are the risks of dying for this or that? And here we have a silent killer killing off, I think I even have a stat on that. I mean, it was like close to 500 or 600,000 Americans. It's the major cause of death prematurely worldwide, hypertension. Major cause of death worldwide for premature death, okay? Half of American adults have high blood pressure. In the world, it's 1.13 billion people with high blood pressure. 1.13 billion. Whoa. Right? That's what kind of blows me away, is we don't talk about this enough, right? There's another stat too. The CDC was saying that only about 24% of people with hypertension actually have their hypertension under control. whether that be through medication or otherwise. Okay? That's crazy. 500,000 deaths in the United States included hypertension as the primary or contributing cause of death. And my dad fell victim to that, you know? So very close to my heart. So this is one we need to pay attention to, and we don't, right? We look at everything else killing people, but we don't pay attention to something as simple, essentially, as your blood pressure and how many people that kills every single year and how many people are impacted. In fact, costs to the healthcare system for high blood pressure alone, about $131 billion per year on treating hypertension. Now, here's the thing. Hypertension, most of the time, is highly regulated by lifestyle management, right? I guarantee you that doesn't cost $131 billion per year. We could save a lot of money if we started to pay attention to the things that affect blood pressure and started to make, just little changes in our lives, or pay attention to some of the things that maybe are in our control. So today, I want to talk about some of the factors of blood pressure that we can actually control, that we can actively work towards reducing high blood pressure in our own bodies and our loved ones' bodies to avoid stroke, to avoid heart attack, right? And on top of that, also lower inflammation, improve our health in other ways, right? So that's what I want to talk about today, because so often all we hear about are medications, right? And one more point on that, while I've got you, one more point on that. All of the medications, interestingly enough, for hypertension, all have a different action. Okay? And each mechanism of action basically tells you where the problem is. What do I mean by that? Okay, so for example, beta blockers. Beta blockers work by blocking sympathetic activity. So we talk a lot every day about sympathetic output and parasympathetic output, and how sympathetic output is that running from a bear, right? So beta blockers block that. So if a beta blocker works on someone, I typically know that maybe they're overstimulated in the sympathetic system. Now you've got other people who use things like calcium channel blockers, which blocks calcium and muscle contractions and such. You've got ACE inhibitors, which relax the blood vessels. So instead of them being really tight, they dilate them. So a lot of the times with an ACE inhibitor works, a beta blocker won't work as well, right? So these medications actually tell us where the problem is. If you're looking at an ARB or an angiotensin receptor blocker, that's looking at sodium through the kidney, retention through the kidney. So you could look more at treating the kidneys in natural ways. So what's nice about blood pressure medication is if I have a patient that comes to me on it and I know which medication works, it gives me a clue as to what system might be impacted. Does that make sense? So it's funny. It's like that's our treatment. You know, our treatment is actually picking the drug that affects the cause, yet we don't spend a lot of time talking about natural ways to impact that cause as well. So that's what I want to talk about. Okay? Does that make sense? You guys cool with that? Have I raised your blood pressure yet? I can do it. All I have to do is start talking about politics or COVID or this or that, right? And I can raise your blood pressure, right? Sympathetic output, that is. So before I go into what causes it, let's just do a review of what is it? What does that blood pressure reading mean? Do you guys know? I know a lot of people say, well, it's, my blood pressure is 120/70, but I have no idea what that means, right? So let's talk about what that means. Let me teach you. So give me just a few minutes to go over it. If you already know this, I don't know, grab a cup of coffee. I'll just take a couple minutes. So first of all, blood pressure measures how forceful the blood is running through the body, okay? It's pushing through the body. So there are two different numbers when you take your blood pressure. You have the top number, which is called the systolic number, and you have the bottom number, which is called the diastolic number, okay? So the systolic blood pressure, the top number, tells us the pressure going through your artery walls when your heart is beating. The diastolic tells us the pressure going through your arteries at rest. Okay, so you've got what's happening when it's beating versus when it's at rest. This is why doctors worry more when the bottom number goes up, because the higher the blood pressure at rest, the more risk of problems, right? This is also why if you exercise or you have a fright, your top number goes up, but your bottom number doesn't move much, right? Because that's more a sympathetic or stress output, okay? they're treated differently as well, depending on which number is high or if they're both high. But that's what those mean. Okay, so now you know. You know, the normal range, it kind of plays around with numbers. You know, basically 120 over 70 is typically about normal. You can go all the way up to 80 on the bottom. Once you get over 80 on the bottom, like 80 to 90, doctors start to get a little bit worried. It's like, okay, why is the bottom number? Why at rest is our blood pressure getting so high? Now, the top number can range. It also ranges what you're doing. If you go for a long run, your top number might go up, right? So at rest, what is your blood pressure? That's really what we're looking at. You know, a lot of people have what's called white coat hypertension. I do. I don't like getting my blood pressure taken. I hate it. I have little tiny arms. So when they when they use an auto cuff, it freaking hurts. And I don't like it. And usually it'll raise me a couple points. Luckily, I'm already very low, so it brings it up. But there's this white coat hypertension. And what you'll see with that is you'll see the top number go up, but the diastolic number, the bottom number, usually stays in normal range. So that's why a lot of doctors will say, oh, you're probably just scared of me, right? But that is actually a thing, white coat hypertension. I actually never wear a white coat. During med school, we were required to wear a white coat. It drove me nuts. Drove me absolutely nuts. Because I don't want to come in a white coat. Like, I want to come in and I want to connect with my patient and I want to get a story. I want people to feel comfortable with me. I want people to tell me about their health. If they're petrified and scared that you're going to give them bad news when you walk in with a white coat, they're not going to tell you as much as you want to know, right? So I try to have a relaxed environment for that reason, because I don't like those white coats either. They scare me. Carolyn, your run's about 130 over 80, right? So your bottom number is at the high end of normal, but the top number is a little bit high, a little bit of sympathetic output there, right? All right, so that explains what blood pressure readings mean. There you go, blood pressure 101. Any questions on that? Because then we're going to talk about some of the factors that can affect your blood pressure readings that you may or may not know about. Hopefully you don't, and this is all new information. You guys awake yet? You know coffee can raise your blood pressure? It can. I'm not going to talk about that one. But I'm going to drink more of it. All right. Okay. First of all, I think the number one, if you look at, by the way, if you look at the CDC or you look at the WHO or you look at the American Heart Association and you say what causes high blood pressure, they always say too much salt. That's the first thing. Although I agree, and we're going to talk about salt and processed foods in just a second, I would like to argue I don't think that's the number one cause of high blood pressure in our country or in our world. I would like to argue that the number one cause is that darn never-ending to-do list that we constantly chase. The stress. Okay? Stress causes high blood pressure. Here's why. Because it's a natural reaction. It's the first thing that happens. When you see that bear in the woods, you're faced with stress. Your eyes narrow into running, your blood pressure goes up, and you run. That is a survival mechanism. It is natural. Therefore, if you are constantly running from a bear, it will cause chronic high blood pressure over time. It is the number one reason why half of American adults have high blood pressure. Think about this too. I've said multiple times about how there's a difference, and I think I was asked yesterday from someone on this, so listen up. There's a difference between external and internal stress, okay? Now, the body doesn't know the difference. The body says stress. If cortisol goes up, you're under stress. It doesn't care if it's internal, external, whatever. But there are different types, right? So a lot of people associate stress only with external stress. You know, oh, I have a good life, I have a good job, I have a good family, I'm not stressed. Well, other things can cause stress, internal stresses. Lack of a vitamin, you know, malnutrition. Here's where the point I'm getting to. Diabetes, hugely stressful. Hugely stressful on the system. Why do diabetes and high blood pressure go together like this? One causes the other. High blood pressure can cause diabetes. Diabetes can cause high blood pressure. Stress on the body. This is a stressed problem. okay? And diabetes is ridiculously, I want to say the word popular, I mean just overtaking America in particular. And then you couple that with high blood pressure and you've got a recipe for disaster. I mean, silent or otherwise, killer. It will kill you ultimately, right? The statistics say it will, right? But here's the thing, you can change that. One, pay attention to the stressors on your body, identify them, right? Number one way people say, well, how do I get this under control, Dr. Pingle? How do I control my stress? Number one, you have to identify it. You have to know where it's coming from. Do you have external stressors? Do you have internal stressors? How significant are they and can you modify them? What do you have to do, right? Do you have the education to understand what you need to do? Right? Which is why I'm here, to educate you. And also why I put together my program, why I write all these articles, is so that people can start to understand and identify where the problem is. Because you're never going to get anywhere if you don't identify the problem. I think in general, like if you take problem solving 101, you have to know the problem before you can do anything about it. The problem is not hypertension. The problem is why hypertension is occurring. Right? Hypertension is a symptom of a problem. So I think too often in medicine, what we do is we take the symptom and we assume it's the problem. Oh, I have hypertension, I just take meds for it. Well, great, but you're not addressing the problem. You're addressing the symptom of the problem. You guys getting that? You're addressing the symptom of the problem. Find the problem. Yeah? With me? It's a different approach than the conventional model, I understand. I had a question. When we remember something stressful or scary, does the blood pressure elevate again as when the stressor happened in the first place? Is there a stress brain memory? You know, I don't know if there's been a direct association, but I would love to say yes, because I see people like when they're asleep, you know, when they're thinking about a stressful event, their blood pressure can go up. Or like just people with anxiety, you see that, you know, when you people revisit a traumatic event, their blood pressures can go up. So I'm going to say yeah, for sure. But I don't have any statistics to support that. That's just my brain rambling on, which hopefully you guys don't mind. I'm a little rambly today, huh? My friends out there listening will say, oh boy, here she goes. Oh, thank you. That was so sweet, Kelly. Thank you. But anyway, I want to just stress that the primary treatment for high blood pressure is medication, but not looking at the cause. There is always a cause of high blood pressure, whether it's blocks in the arteries, whether it's stress, whether it's some of the other things I'm about to talk about. There's always a cause. You have to address the cause or you will not fix it. Just for an example, my dad had a heart attack. He also had a stroke. The stroke took his life. He was on cholesterol medication and blood pressure medication. His numbers were fine, but he still died. Why? Because we didn't look at the cause, right? We just treated the symptom. And that maybe he was supposed to pass 5 years earlier, and maybe those medications prolonged his life for a little while, and I'm grateful. But if I would have known then that what I know now, maybe I could have saved him, you know? All right, so remember, stress causes your blood pressure to rise naturally. It's a normal physiological reaction to sympathetic output. That's why beta blockers work. So make sure that you're paying attention to those external and internal stressors. Identify them. If you want to know some fun ways to reduce stress, I have an article on that. I spoke about some of them yesterday too. Like I dance. I went to hip hop last night, had a great time, totally relaxed. Probably why I'm hyper today. You know, exercise, singing, you know, doing a hobby, just getting outside, things like that can really help. Okay? Now, number two, this kind of leads back to my dad as well in one sense, but this is another reason why blood pressure can go up. It has to do with B vitamins. Okay? B vitamins are very critical in blood pressure management. In fact, if you have the mutation that we spoke about in a different live, was it last week or the week before? The MTHFR mutation, one of the number one symptoms is high blood pressure. Why? So that mutation inhibits our ability to convert folic acid to folate. If you missed that live, go back and watch it, okay? I have both mutations, okay? Genetically, I am set up to have cardiovascular disease because of that. Right? If I don't treat it. My dad likely did as well, which is why I say maybe we could have saved him. Who knows? Life goes on. You figure it out. You learn from it. I'm going to save my own life moving forward, right? So B6 B12, and folate play a huge role in blood pressure management. Usually, in this case, it's due to an inflammatory marker called homocysteine. If you're going for an evaluation with your doctors and you have high blood pressure, make sure they check for homocysteine, okay? Homocysteine. Homocysteine, when it elevates, not only causes inflammation, but also has been shown to raise your blood pressure. What's cool is that if you take any sort of supplements or lifestyle management that helps with methylation, vitamin B6, vitamin B12, and these need to be active forms methylated, and methylated folate, often homocysteine will drop, so will blood pressure. So there has been multiple times throughout my career where I've done injectable B6 and B12 weekly for 6 weeks, and someone's blood pressure has gone from a pre-hypertension to a normal hypertension from that alone, and they haven't had to use medications. I have other people who are on blood pressure medications for other risk factors, or perhaps we got to it a little too late. There's already a lot of constriction in the arteries, but they maintain and get to use lower amounts of medication with B vitamin supplementation. So Bs are very, very, very important. All of my Bs in the total B complex are methylated for this exact reason, so that you make sure that something as simple as a B vitamin, what is this, like $9, $10? Like it's less than $15 somewhere in there. I mean, for 60 of them, like it's in this one a day. So a 2-month supply. I mean, it's gonna cost you anywhere from $5 to $10 a month, right? To take a methylated B vitamin, which not only will help with your stress response, but will also help replenish B vitamins that are lost due to stress, okay? So when it comes to blood pressure situations that are due to sympathetic output, I find that B vitamins are huge, okay? They're huge in the treatment and the management of high blood pressure. Did you guys know that? Right? Don't quote me on my price, but I think it's cheap. it's cheap, right? I have a couple questions on Instagram before I move on to the next one, which is salt. Thank you, Eli. What do I do regarding my main stressor being dreams? Since I can't control them, I wake up in the night. You actually can. What that usually means is that cortisol levels are increasing in the middle of the night. If you start having high blood pressure, heart palpitations in the middle of the night from dreams, there's a couple different things that could be happening. Typically, there's a stress response in the middle of the night. I'm going to guess you're a little bit tired around 2 to 3 p.m. during the day and maybe awake around 1 to 3 a.m. in the morning. Am I right? So typically what that would mean is that the adrenal glands are dysregulated. So you want to use things like phosphatidylserine, L-theanine, ashwagandha. A lot of herbs can be used to regulate stress response. And over time, what happens is that actually gives you more restful sleep. If you're looking for supplements on that, check out my adrenal bundle. Or the expanded adrenal bundle would probably be even better, but the adrenal bundle or the expanded adrenal bundle at totalhealthapothecary.com. Those types of things. Check with your doctor, of course, but those types of things typically are why dreams wake you up and give you high blood pressure. Because you're dreaming about it, you're thinking about it. It goes back to Andrea's question earlier about can thinking about events that raised your blood pressure cause problems. So typically I would look at why you're not going into a deep sleep at night as the cause as opposed to the dream. Does that make sense? Get tired around 8 p.m. Well, that's good. A lot of people have a shift in cycle where they're not sleeping as deeply around that middle of the night time. Their dreams are waking them up, or they're waking up in panic, right? So typically the next progression is that you'll start to get really tired about 12 hours later. So it's great if that's not happening to you, but I would definitely make sure you get on top of it because it will happen ultimately. Cool, Mina? All right, so this is the next one I'm going to talk about. Causes of high blood pressure is one you've probably heard about, and that has to do with salt, right? Now, I want to be very clear. I'm not opposed to salt. Somebody asked the other day, can I put salt on my meal, or can I cook with some salt in my meals? Of course you can. In fact, I recommend it. If you're eating a primarily whole food diet, adding salt for flavoring is not a problem. Okay? We get this thing like salt bad. Not necessarily, okay? It's not always bad. The problem is that all of our processed foods are heavily sodium heavy. Deli meats, processed foods are causing an overwhelming amount of sodium in our diet. And unfortunately, as you guys may know, most of us are also dehydrated. So you take high sodium diets plus dehydration, and guess what you get? high blood pressure, right? Some of the meds work specifically on sodium retention mechanisms through the kidney. That's why they work. So if you're someone, on a blood pressure medication that has to do with sodium, that's why when you change your diet, you see your blood pressure go back down. Okay? I was trying to find the name of they all kind of work on, the ARBs work on kidneys. ACE inhibitors have a lot to do with it as well. So make sure that you're watching that. So what is the diet that has been shown to cause high blood pressure, and what diet can reverse it? Let's talk about that. So the first thing is the diets that affect the blood pressure the most would be things like canned soups, dried soup mixes, condiments, a lot of salad dressings, ketchups, mustards, snack foods, processed snack foods like pretzels, chips, popcorn. Fast food, fastest way to do it, right? Fastest way to do it. I'll come back to HCTZ in a second. Thank you, June. I'll talk about that in a sec. Frozen foods, boxed rice, boxed potatoes, right? Pickled foods sometimes can have quite a lot of sodium in them as well, okay? So there's actually been research shown that if you just have a single high salt meal, you can actually, raise your blood pressure. Now, when I say salt, I'm talking processed salts. I'm not necessarily talking sprinkling a little bit of Himalayan sea salt onto your food. That's not what I'm talking about. Although if you're eating a bunch of processed foods and then you add salt, right? The goal is to eat more plants, more plant fiber. Okay, fiber not only helps your diet with lowering inflammation, but also lowers your cholesterol, improves your heart health. Lots of studies on fiber-rich diets lowering heart disease. Heart disease is the #1 killer in the world. We don't talk about it enough. I talk about it too much, right? But we can reverse it. We can totally reverse it. Yes, flax seeds are great, Patricia. Siberian ginseng, in general, yes, it's safe. I think I have a live on that. Check back in my database there, Nurtured Nature. Generally safe, yeah. I mean, you have to check with your doctor. I can't tell you whether you can take it or not. Part of those restrictions, but yeah. Okay, so definitely focusing on your diet. I'm going to bet that if all of us focused 100% on our diet alone and changed it more to eating more plants and more fiber, that we would actually reduce cardiovascular disease and diabetes and cancer by probably more than 40%. I wish I could do that study. I'm trying to I've just seen it in my patient database. The people that change their diet, the number of risk factors that they lower over the course of a year is phenomenal. So if you said to yourself, I'm going to commit to something for 6 months, I'm going to do this for 6 months and see how many risk factors I can lower. I have seen diabetes reverse. I have seen hypertension reverse. I've seen high cholesterol reverse. I've seen inflammation drop down to ridiculously low levels from previously high levels. I have seen people reverse autoimmunity. I've seen people reverse thyroid disease, definitely reverse stress response or adrenal fatigue simply from changing their diet. Right? That's what we are. We're a machine. We put food in order to produce energy. We're metabolically active. We need to focus on that a little bit more. Don't you guys think? Don't drive to that fast food place. What type of salt do I recommend? I mean, I usually do sea salt, typically. Sometimes Himalayan, I'm not a big salt eater, Christy. I'm not a fan of salt. But my husband likes a little bit of salt. So when I cook, sometimes I'll add a little bit. If it's something acidic, I kind of add a little bit. I tend to use more things like cinnamon, cardamom, turmeric. I use chili pepper, black pepper. I tend to use more of those types of spices in my cooking just because I'm not a huge salt person. Although every so often, if I do, I use a sea salt. Okay? Now, this one you may not know. Number 4, ways that you can increase your blood pressure and maybe not know. Cold and allergy medication. Did you guys know that? So I had a patient who was taking Flonase for allergies on the nose. and her blood pressure would go up after she took it. And she went to her ENT and she's like, look, my blood pressure goes up when I take this. And they go, oh, for heaven's sakes, it's not related. Like, it has nothing to do with it. Well, she came to see me and I said, oh, it absolutely does. And we actually looked at the pamphlet, like side effects, the pamphlet, it's in there, can raise your blood pressure. So decongestants in particular, decongestants for allergies, cold and flu medications can raise your blood pressure. So if you're someone who, like, you have a great lifestyle, you can't figure out why your blood pressure is going up, but you take an allergy medication, pay attention to that. See if there might be a link. It absolutely is a cause. Now, does it drive it through the roof? No. But could it change you from normal to pre-hypertension and then have you prematurely be put on a blood pressure medication when you really don't need it? Yeah. Because if you took the allergy medication away and went a different route, you wouldn't need the blood pressure medication, right? So just think about that. If you have Hashimoto's, is it okay to use salt that has iodine in it, or should it be iodine free? I'm okay with it. It's kind of a big topic there, but to me, you want to support thyroid function. And iodine is very highly evolved in the manufacturing of T4, so I don't have a problem with it. If you have, yeah, I mean, I would absolutely use salt. I wouldn't inhibit that at all. Birth control pill can raise the blood pressure. Absolutely. I didn't have that on my list, but you're absolutely right, Patricia. Birth control pill is another one that can raise blood pressure. So why go on another medication if you can find the cause, right? So pay attention to your medications. Open up the pamphlet of all the medications that you take and see if perhaps they could raise your blood pressure as a side effect. You know, there was something someone had said in med school, and they said, you know, the term allopathic means other disease. So like, well, we can fix your cholesterol by giving you a statin, but it'll give you liver disease. Which one do you want? High cholesterol or liver disease? You pick. I hate that method. Drives me nuts, right? To me, I'm like, well, why not fix your diet and eat more fiber? And then not only do you avoid liver disease, but you also lower your cholesterol. Pretty straightforward to me, you know, or exercise every day, you know, help clear your toxins. Like, to me, I'm like, well, why don't we just fix it without causing any other diseases? But it's an interesting model, right? It's like, well, we'll give you this, but you'll get this. So we'll cure your allergies, but you're going to get high blood pressure, right? Just a little food for thought there. Can stress cause hyperthyroid? I don't necessarily know, Mary John, if it would cause it directly. It absolutely aggravates it, no doubt. You know, we're all a related being. I can't say that stress causes pretty much everything. I find stress causing hypothyroid more than hyperthyroid, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. And stress will absolutely aggravate hyperthyroid. So if you have an underlying Graves' disease and you're stressed, that's an autoimmunity, right? So stress aggravates autoimmunity every single time. So yeah. Okay. Thank you, Rosa. All right. Now, how many of you with this whole semi-lockdown, change of job stuff are spending more time sitting on your rear end in front of a computer than you did a year ago, right? Number 5 is we sit at our desk too long. We don't exercise enough. We don't prioritize exercise as a nation, as a whole. We just don't. It's interesting. If you look at the demographics of hypertension in the U.S., you see that the rates of hypertension are higher in the South and the East Coast than the West Coast, which is interesting. More up in the Northern Pacific Northwest through the West Coast, we tend to have lower incidence of hypertension. We also have better weather. You know, I think in general, we're outside more mobility. And we're finding more sedentary lifestyles or go type lifestyles. I mean, if you look at someone, you know, trying to keep up with everything in New York, they're running around all the time. It's it can be a very stressful environment in Manhattan, that is. So I just wonder, like, when you look at where you live and the type of lifestyle that's there, there's also a lot more obesity in some of the southern states than there is in some of the western states. So I'm sure that plays a role. And I suspect that diabetes kind of follows the same trend. But the point is, the more you move, the better off your cardiovascular health would be. I think that's pretty straightforward, but I don't think people realize that simply just commit to 30 minutes a day of something, some sort of movement. It will make a drastic change in your health. Hopefully you'll end up liking it and do it more than 30 minutes a day. There was even a study that said if you just every 30 minutes during your workday get up and take a short walk or do a few exercises at your desk, it actually found that it could lower your blood pressure in people with type 2 diabetes. So get up, walk around. The problem is right now we're all sitting at home, right? And we're logging into Zoom meetings. We're not getting up and getting dressed and going to the office and walking around the office and going to the water cooler and the break room and, meeting up with our friends. I remember when I was in med school, my friend and I used to, at every break, we would just dart outside and we'd walk the parking lot for the 10-minute break and talk. And so every hour we had 10 minutes where we just walked. And I loved that. Not only was it giving me exercise when I was stuck in front of a computer for 10 hours, but it also gave me an opportunity to be social. And it also reduced my stress because I got out of the building, which we talked about yesterday. The one thing you can do to reduce your stress is just when you get overwhelmed, just get out, leave the building, go put your feet in the ground, right? Okay? So, that really makes a difference. So following more of a plant-focused diet, and that doesn't mean you can't have meat, but make sure there's a lot of plants in there. Plant-focused diet, whole food diet, fiber-rich diet, and exercise, I guarantee you would reduce our incidence of cardiovascular disease by a significant amounts. Can you just stop taking birth control cold turkey? First of all, Soraya, I can't give you direct medical advice over social media. You'll have to talk to your doctor about that. I can tell you that often when hormones are abruptly stopped, the menstrual cycle can cause some unwanted side effects. So I would there is a very easy way to reduce blood pressure, birth control down. Your doctor should be able to help you, no problem. But I can't advise you on that one, on stopping medications without a doctor's advice. Sorry, love. Drives me beyond nuts that if you fall into the 1% that medications do affect poorly, most doctors will submit you. Yeah, I think it's more than 1% of people that respond poorly, though. I mean, in my patient database, I see a ton of people responding poorly to medications, but then again, that's what I see, right? Or people that aren't going by the conventional model. So I have to realize that my database might be a little bit different. Do blue light glasses help reduce insomnia? I've heard that. I have a good friend that plays with the different type of glass lens. I think she wears pink during the day and whatever. I haven't spent a lot of time looking at it, but yeah, I would say there's a lot of valid research there. I should do an article on that. That's a great suggestion, Christy. Okay, so do you guys have any questions about blood pressure? Right? There was a study, there was a 2014 study on diet here published in Open Heart Journal that found that eating sugar, processed sugars, is as bad, if not worse, than eating processed salts for rating blood pressure. Right? Once again, processed diets, not working. Skip the line at McDonald's today. That's right. There are a couple other questions, common questions I get. People ask about garlic, if garlic can truly lower blood pressure. There's a lot of really cool studies on garlic, which allicin is the main component of that. It's anti-inflammatory and antioxidant. If you crush a clove of garlic or you chop it up, that's when that's when the medicine is released. Okay, so chop it up really well or crush it. And it's been shown in studies to protect against atherosclerosis, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. I regularly put garlic in pretty much everything for that reason. The fresher, the better. Even using it during cold and flu season. You can do crushed garlic on toast, like garlic toast. That works really well during cold and flu season as well. Allicin has a lot of benefits, but definitely to the heart. Some people take garlic pills for the heart, and that's why. So that's another one. I know I get that question quite often. I was trying to look at what some of my common questions are. So if you guys have any other questions, throw them at me. But I hope you learned today that high blood pressure is a silent killer and is impacting half of our American population and 1.13 billion people worldwide. 20% of the people that have it know that they don't know that they have it. Sorry, more coffee. And that amounts to about 100 million Americans with high blood pressure, which is a silent killer and is the primary reason for premature death in the world. Okay? So pay attention to that. Can you reverse atherosclerosis? You can. And part of it is slowing it. That's the first part of it. But yeah, definitely. Same recommendations. Absolutely same recommendations. Okay? So guys, I hope you learned something today. Please get up after you just sat here for an hour and go walk around the parking lot or walk around your house, do some jumping jacks, something to get your blood moving, get your blood pressure down. Hopefully I didn't raise it today. So excited to be here. I'm Dr. Tricia Pingle with your morning checkup. Once again, just a reminder, all supplements free shipping right now. We talked about the B complex today, how important it is. So stock up. Okay, and a couple of you asked about stress response. The Advanced Adrenal Bundle has a very comprehensive stress response to help with number of conditions. But if you guys have any further questions, I will come through and answer them. Thank you so much. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Oh, wait, one more question. How often to check your blood pressure or just rely on nutrition? It depends on how often you check your blood pressure. If you're someone that has high blood pressure, I would check it daily. If you're someone that doesn't, then, you know, it's far less often. Okay? Thank you so much, guys. Have a great day. I'm signing off. Bye-bye now.